Hey, what's up there, YouTubers? It's me again, Brian, aka Gamer 55551, and I am back with a My 2 Cent video for this week, for the week of September 29th to October 4th, 2025, where I take a look at a couple of stories that caught my attention and give you my thoughts and my opinion about them. And we have really just 3 stories for this week to talk about, including the controversial decision Microsoft made in terms of raising the price for GamePass, which certainly has not gone over well pretty much online and everything. The Xbox Rog Ally, which seems to be, despite the price tag, seems to be sold out, at least for now and all. And a report of basically a firm owned by Saudi Arabia and another firm owned by Jared Kushner has purchased EA, as EA has gone private and all. And there are some people who are kind of mixed with that story. It's mixed with that report, though. If you're interested in where I got the source of these information, links will be in the description of this video, assuming you're watching this video on either on YouTube or Patreon. And of course, the timestamps will also be in the description of this video if there are certain parts of this video you wish to skip to and all. Well, before we get started, I like to do what I like to call the quick My 2 Cents, stories that kind of caught my attention, but I'm not going to go into a huge amount of details and all. The first one has to do with a YouTube short that was shown during, I think, a Warframe live stream by, I believe, the development team Digital Eclipse. I believe that's the name. I apologize if I get the developer's name wrong or anything like that. It's basically Warframe running on the Nintendo Switch 2. As we now know, the game is coming to the Switch 2 as well. And judging by the footage that was recently shown of that game, though, it actually looks kind of neat and everything. It looks like they really did a good job getting that game running. I believe got it running at, at least from the footage, it showed like it was running at 60 frames per second and all. Now, as some of you may or may not have been aware, the original one was released back in 2019 for the Switch 1. The development of that game was handled by Porthouse Panic Button, which was known for handling ports like Doom Eternal, and Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus for the Switch 1 back in the day during the Switch 1 era. So, judging from what's been shown so far, it looks kind of neat, though. It looks good, at least from what they've shown, at least based on what this footage was being shown and everything like that. We also learned that Night Dive Studios is working on another remaster or remake, though. These are the same studios that have done remaster remakes, like the Turok series is one example of that. And recently it has been previously announced they are doing another remaster based off the Blood series, though. Judging from the trailer, it looks like another game that follows the formula similar to that of like the old school Doom games and everything like that. I've tried some of their other games as well, like I think Star Wars Dark Force is another example as well too. So yeah, it's another remaster of a game, but it's probably one I'll probably keep an eye out indeed, because I like these kind of unique old school first person shooters and everything like that. We also learned that supposedly a Chinese developing team is working on what essentially is basically their take on basically Square Enix's dormant franchise, the Parasite Eve series and all. Now, I will say visually it looks nice and everything like that, but we'll have to wait and see how the game looks and plays and everything like that. The gameplay mechanics seems to be mostly more closer to, I think, of the first Parasite Eve game and everything. So we'll have to wait and see when that game finally comes out. Right now it's aimed for the PS5 and Steam. No word if it will be coming to other systems at this time, though. And assuming how well this game does, though, it will be interesting to see if this maybe has Square Enix to maybe rethink and maybe consider maybe going back to the Parasite Eve franchise. I know the last one was on the I think it was on the PS Vita. I think it was called Third Birthday and all, and I heard that one didn't do very well and everything. So time will ultimately tell whether Square Enix takes another shot at that franchise. But for now, if you're looking for a Parasite Eve type of game, you probably want to consider taking a look at this. We also learned that Square Enix recently talked about the Switch 2 version of Final Fantasy VII Integrate, though. Some of the things they talked about was how they had to make some adjustments here and there, and by doing that, they were able to get the game running at a stable 30 frames per second, as that's how the game is going to run on the Switch 2 and all. So certainly interesting to see what they had to go through and all, but supposedly they seem to be very positive about it, similar to what we saw with Resident Evil Requiem, though, which we are learning that basically in which Capcom got Village running on it, they figured, yeah, you know what, let's just bring Requiem over and everything. So certainly nice indeed, including the fact that we're also learning about the fact that they originally did consider releasing a cloud version of Final Fantasy VII Remake, but they decided against that at all, which I think that probably was a smart decision to do and everything. Not a lot of people went over well when it was announced that the Kingdom Hearts game were coming to the Switch 1, but it was going to be just a cloud version, which, I mean, even the older Kingdom Hearts games, I think they could have figured out a way to get that running on the Nintendo Switch or the Switch 1. Maybe they could get a native version running on Switch 2 if that happens and everything. So at least we know we are getting a cloud version of Final Fantasy VII integrated on the Switch 2. That said, odds are it is probably going to be a game key card, which is what I expected it will probably be. I know that a lot of people have mixed feelings about that decision as well. And last but not least, though, we also learned that Ubisoft and Tencent has formed a new company that would be basically focused on the Assassin's Creed and Far Cry series and so forth. Though this is sort of a collaboration between the two, since I believe that Tencent has put more stake into Ubisoft and all. I mean, again, I understand for a lot of these companies like Tencent do give these companies like a lot of money to be able to do a lot of these investments, but then again, there is the controversy of Tencent being tied to the Chinese government, and again, brings up all human rights issues and everything like that. So it definitely, there are definitely some concerns about this, but for now, it looks like Ubisoft and Tencent are going forward with this and all. Excuse me. And in the movie and TV show part of the Quick My 2 Cent, we're learning that basically one of the confirmed MCU stars, I think it's going to be, let me just check just to make sure. I may have read this the wrong way. Let me just double check something very quickly. Oh yeah. It's being part of the unique trilogy for the series though. It's basically talking about Vision Quest, the upcoming, basically upcoming show from Disney Plus and everything, and how this is sort of like a trilogy, indeed, how it started with WandaVision and then Agatha all along, going into basically, this Vision Quest type of thing. I will say WandaVision still remains a top tier, like, Marvel show, to be exact, though. I really like that one. I especially like how almost like each episode was kind of like a throwback to like old TV shows, like from like the 50s, and he went to the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, and then the 90s and the early 2000s, with like Modern Family and everything. So it was a really neat show and everything like that. Agatha all along, I was kind of mixed on that one. It was okay, at least in my book, though. It wasn't exactly that great. So we'll see how WandaVision is going to be. And of course, in the Star Wars part, though, we are learning about basically that filming is already, or at least is further along, and it will take place after Episode 9, though. This isn't really surprising since it's been confirmed that that they're going to do another Star Wars movie and all. It's going to be interesting to see how Star Wars will fare this time in the box office and all, as there have been some mixed response to how Star Wars has been handled and everything. It's going to be interesting to see how Mandalorian Guru will be, though, but it'll be very interesting to see how Episode 9 is going to be and what direction they'll go with that one. Will they bring back remnants of the Empire, or will they bring out like maybe a brand new villain and all? Maybe look at some of the legacy books to draw some form of inspiration. So there are certainly ways they could approach this. And last but not least, though, we are learning how several actors or comedians have come out in basically some in support and some against what is basically called the Riyadh Comedy Festival. This is being run by the Saudi government and everything like that. Some comedians are alright with it, but some are criticizing the event entirely because there have been some reports about how a lot of these comedians had to sign something saying they signed certain jokes they couldn't make, like they couldn't joke about the royal family and everything. So it's certainly a very controversial thing. Indeed, this isn't the first time we've heard some controversies with Saudi Arabia. The other one was the golf tournament there, that some golf players were signing up to it despite some criticism of it being run by the Saudi family. So it certainly is an interesting article to read from the Hollywood Reporter and all. Okay, with the Quick My 2 Cent part done, along with our movie and TV show part of the Quick My 2 Cent, we'll get started with our first story, and this one has to do with EA, particularly being bought out by a firm owned by both the Saudi government and a firm supposedly run by Jared Kushner and all. Now, over the years, we have seen companies or firms owned by certain governments, buying things here and there. One of the most famous ones, of course, is Tencent, that supposedly is run by the Chinese government. It has had a stake in some companies and all. One example is, of course, Platinum, and, of course, recently with Ubisoft and all. And another has to be a firm from Saudi Arabia run by the Saudi government, which has had stakes in other companies before. Supposedly it had a stake in Nintendo, although that has now been reported has sort of shrunk over the years. We've also heard how they have a stake in, SNK and all. So we've seen a lot of these companies, a lot of these firms invest in some of these companies. That said, there has been some criticisms about these companies investing, or these firms investing into some of these companies, particularly coming from countries that, well, let's just say don't have a great human rights record, though. And now the most recent one is reported that EA is one of the companies that has just recently been purchased by this firm from Saudi Arabia, and with it Jared Kushner and all. For EA, in other words, to go private and everything like that. In an article from the Associated Press, it reads, let me get this out of the way. Okay, here it is. It reads that, quote, Electronic Arts, the maker of video games like Madden NFL, Battlefield, and The Sims, is being acquired by an investment group including Saudi Arabia Sovereignty Wealth Funds in the largest private equity fund buyout in history. The investors also include firms managed by Jared Kushner's, President Donald Trump's son-in-law, and a private equity firm, Silver Lake Partners, valued at the deal at $55 billion. EA stockholders will receive $210 per share. The deal far exceeds the $32 billion price tag to take Texas utility TXU private in 2007, which has shattered records for leveraged buyouts. PIF, which is currently the largest insider stakeholder in Electronic Arts, will be rolling over its existing 9.9% investment in the company. The commitment to the massive deal is in line with recent activities in the gaming sector by Saudi fund, wrote Andrew Marks of Raymond James. The Saudi PFI is a very attractive player in the video game market since 2022, taking minority stakes in most scale public video game publishing and also outright purchasing of companies like ESL, FACEIT, and Scopely, he wrote. The PFI has made its interest in scaling its gaming arm, Suave Games Group's Clears, and the EA deal would represent the biggest such move to date by some distance. PIF is also a minority investment in Nintendo. The deal needs approval from national security regulators on the Committee on Foreign Investments. Given that the Saudis are involved, there are plenty of reason to expect it will go through. Not only does Trump's son-in-law want to do the deal, but the president could also be inclined to look favorably on any Saudi investment because it has benefited directly from their spending. His family business has been paid by Saudi-backed LIV Golf for hosting this tournament at his clubs, starting at a difficult time a year ago when the PGA Tour pulled out of the event at the same venue following the January 6th siege of Capitol on the Capitol by Trump supporters in 2021. The agency leans the Foreign Investment Committee. The Treasury Department did not immediately respond to a request for comments about the potential conflict of interest. If the transition closed as anticipated, it will end EA's 36 years history as a publicly traded company that began with the shares ending its first day of trading at a split adjusted 52 cents. There's more of this article you can read if you want to take a look at it, though. Now, there are some arguments that could be made about this. There are some that point out that the Saudi government is basically looking at ways to not rely heavily on oil, to like fund the country and everything like that. That's true. And then there are some who are pointing out that basically, EA, if they want to do this, they could do this if they want to, and which I wouldn't argue against, considering the fact they are a privately owned business and everything like that. So that argument is true. But as with Tencent, and as I brought up, however, there are concerns about this, not only with Jared Kushner and ties to President Trump and all in terms of conflict of interest, though. But there's also concerns about having it come from these companies that basically, firms. I keep saying mixing those two wrong though. Firms that basically have a history, that are run by governments that have a history of human rights abuse and everything. This kind of brings up the whole issue of, it kind of brings back that issue of the whole Blitzchung situation where one of them during the Hearthstone competition said free Hong Kong, which led to Activision Blizzard suspending this person's prize money, which led to backlash against Activision Blizzard. Eventually, they did give this person his prize money, but it opened up a Pandora's box of doing business with countries that don't have great human rights records and all. And this just reinforces that argument indeed as well, though. So it is somewhat concerning to a certain degree, though. So I am very mixed on this. I don't really hugely buy a lot of games from EA and all, considering the direction they have gone and some of the history they have. So I'm not as bothered by this, but I can understand why some folks would be to a certain extent, though. So yeah, this I kind of view sort of as a double-edged sword kind of situation and all. So overall, yes, EA has the right to do this and everything like that, though. If a firm wants to buy out and EA wants to go private, they have a right to do that. But given who's running the firm, though, and the country, Saudi Arabia's history of human rights records, it does raise some concerns. And I don't completely disagree with some of those concerns out there at all. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to part 2. And this one has to do with supposedly the Rog Ally seems to be, or the Xbox Rog Ally seems to be off to a good start despite the price tag and everything for it, though. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 2 of my 2 cent video for this week. And for this one, we're going to be taking a look at the Xbox Rog Ally. Now, one of the things we have seen Microsoft at least try to or do something that is they kind of been sort of dipping their toes a little bit into the handheld market, sort of to a certain degree. We know that there were rumors that they were working on a native Xbox system, but that seems to be on the back burner, at least for now. In the meantime, it seems to be that they are partnering up with these companies that do these portable PC handhelds, which are, I would say, a bit different than that of like something like the Nintendo Switch 2 and everything. So it has seemed to have found some success. I mean, the Steam Deck is a good example of that, although some of that will be what expectations Valve set for the Steam Deck and all. And we've also seen itself with like ROG Allies and other portable PCs out there. Now, when the price point for this system came out, though, there were some wondering if this was going to sell or not, though. I think this one that's more like the Series S in a way was like around, I think like almost like $600 or something, while another one was like almost up to $1,000 and all. So it was a pretty pricey hardware and everything, and it would have been very interesting to see how well this would do, or whether or not it would sell at all, though. Well, Microsoft recently came on X, though, and pointed out how the system seems to be doing very well, at least according to what Microsoft is saying, though. In an article from Windows, or Windows Central, though, it reads that Microsoft shared a post this morning, on X, starting the hype is real. Rog Ally X pre-orders are sold out on the Xbox Store worldwide. You can still grab yours they have the link to it, or find a local retailer on Xbox.com. It points out, though, if you've been trying to figure out whether or not to buy the device, you should know that the Xbox X allies are dwindling fast. They point out in the UK, but it's gone, though. But the AS, US, and Xbox.com are totally cleared out. Best Buy still has some in the United States, but it doesn't seem like they'll last much longer. Selling out doesn't exactly mean that there was a huge amount of stock for this thing, of course. ASUS may have joined Levo in potentially underestimating demands for the device. The fact that Microsoft has been non-stop blitzing market for this thing across the entire summer suggests to me that greater visibility than the device like this typically has. I mean, some could make the same thing about I think it was that PlayStation, that PS screen, or the system, that portable PlayStation that had like the screen that required you, to have access to a Wi-Fi or something like that. Forgot the name of it all. But anyway, continuing on, it points out that Best Buy still has some pre-orders as of this writing, but many other retailers are now showing backorder shipping date as late as December 2025. Sources familiar in the situation tell us new stock should be available before then, though. ASUS and UK still showing stock, though. So if what Microsoft is saying is true, and this is completely accurate, though, it does seem to be that this Rog Ally seems to be off to a good start at the very least, though. Whether or not it can maintain that momentum remains to be seen, and everything like that. Obviously, this one is aiming for maybe a bit of a different market than what the Switch and the Switch 2 are basically aiming for, and that's pretty obvious, though. I've always viewed a lot of these PC handhelds not targeting the same market that those who have a Nintendo Switch or the Switch 2 and all, but still, nevertheless, they certainly have found their spot in need, though, and there are those who like the game on PC who likes this idea and everything like that. As I pointed out before, the Steam Deck is a very good example of this. It'll be very interesting to see how this one plays out for Microsoft indeed. Right now, they seem to be very pleased with it, but time will tell over time whether or not that momentum they're going to keep that momentum going and all. So overall, I would say pretty clear. Pretty clear, though. The Xbox Rog Ally, despite the price point, seems to be off to a very good start, indeed. But time will tell down the road whether or not that momentum will continue on for Microsoft and all. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we'll get to our third and final part of our My 2 Cent video, and this one has to do with the controversy surrounding Microsoft raising the price for Game Pass, particularly Game Pass Ultimate, though. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 3 of my 2 Cent video for this week. And for this one, we're going to be taking a look at Game Pass and the recent price hike that Microsoft has done with Game Pass recently, though. Now, for me, though, there are some ups and downs for Game Pass in general, to be exact, though. I know there are some who are sort of mixed on the idea of a subscription service, or the Netflix of gaming, as some have liked to call it, though, as there's the whole issue of ownership and everything. But at the same time, there are benefits, as it does give you the opportunity to try out some of the games that are available on there before you decide if you want to purchase them. And if you do get a discount off of it, though. So there are some ups and downs to Game Pass in general, though. However, this year has been very mixed for Microsoft, as there have been some questionable decisions that they have made that haven't gone over very well for a lot of people. Some of that has seen the price of the Xbox Series X and S go up though. And now recently, one that has seemed to cause a lot of backlash, or let's just say a huge amount of backlash online, has been raising the price for Game Pass in general, particularly with Game Pass Ultimate though. That has led to a situation where a lot of people were either outright canceling Game Pass or going for the lower tier for Game Pass rather than Game Pass Ultimate in general. From an article from Video Game Chronicles, it reads that, quote, Xbox Game Pass Ultimate will now cost $29.99, $30, but it will also get new additions such as Fortnite Crew and Ubisoft Plus Classic Collection. Microsoft claimed that Xbox Game Pass subscribers will get access to over 75 day one titles, including Call of Duty Black Ops 7, High on Life 2, Keeper, Ninja Gaiden 4, and The Outer Worlds 2, all slated for the remainder of 2025. They point out that Ultimate will be $29.99. Premium will now be Premium, formerly Standard, is $14.99, and Xbox Essential, formerly Core, will be $9.99. PC gamers will still remain available as a separate subscription for PC-only games, but this will now see a price increase from $11.99, $12 to $16.49, most likely $17. As part of today's announcement, Microsoft has added a dozen games to the service, including large numbers of Ubisoft games to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate. They also released a chart pointing out a lot of the stuff. Today's news comes amidst widespread price increase across gaming in both physical hardware and digital offering. Microsoft's consoles have seen a slew of price increase in recent months, the latest coming last week when the firm announced that it would once again increase prices in the US. The company announced back in May that it was increasing prices for its consoles globally, and including increasing the price of Xbox Series X and S consoles by $100 and $80 respectively. Last week it was announced that it's raising prices even further, but only in the US at a time due to changing microeconomic environments. I am assuming some of that could be related to tariffs in general though. So basically this price increase obviously has not gone over well with everybody out there though. There have been some that have not been very pleased with it and has sort of voiced it online to be exact. Now, whether some of these people are just joining in just because it's online, some people just do this for no reason, or it's actually legitimate, remains to be seen. But there have been some that have gone out there as far as canceling, Game Pass Ultimate and everything like that. For me, I've been getting, like those cards, when you go into like a Walmart or a Target or a Best Buy and all, and get like the Game Pass Ultimate though. And recently GameStop has advertised that they still have it at $19.99 right now, although I expect that could change over time and everything like that. That could jump up to, we probably will see one that jumps up to like $29.99. So you might see that change over time, indeed and all. But yeah, I can see why some people may not be happy about this, especially in this economy right now where a lot of people are kind of feeling, feeling the squeeze of the economy and having to pick what's important and what is not though. And I think raising this price has certainly not gotten well with everybody out there. Especially their response to this has also not gone over very well indeed. Now, how big this supposedly backlash, as some are claiming it to be, how big this will go remains to be seen at this time. There are those who do feel that this could have a negative impact on Microsoft, and then there are those who feel it may not at all. So that's going to be very interesting to see. Sometimes we hear about these backlashes online and there's a push for it and it really doesn't do anything, but other times we've seen how that's not always the case. One example is basically the whole situation with Jimmy Kimmel and how the whole huge backlash and people canceling their Disney Plus subscription ultimately led to basically Disney bringing back Jimmy Kimmel and everything like that. So there is a possibility you could have that kind of scenario indeed. But it's also possible nothing could materialize from this. So it could go either way, but yeah, I can see why the price hike is not sitting well with everybody. And Microsoft's response, well, let's just say when it comes to their PR, they do not do a really good job giving a very good reason and response. One of the biggest example is Tango Gameworks and how they're being bought out by another company and all, how they were shutting down Tango Gameworks, and that didn't go over very well, indeed, including some of the claims they made that still didn't go over very well, even if the numbers were there. Though, to even basically the whole situation with Perfect Dark and how that also didn't go over very well, and some of the decisions that they've made. So there have been some questionable decisions, even some calling for the ouster of Phil Spencer, to even Sarah Bond as well. So, but I also think a lot of it also falls on the higher ups, like the people in charge of Microsoft, like Satya Nadella and everything. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this does, though. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some of the subscription numbers drop from Microsoft, although they have not really revealed a whole lot of information about that. And I will admit that kind of does raise some questions about the claim about whether or not they say they have great numbers for basically, for subscription services and everything. And of course, coming off the heels of them making claim how the Xbox division is doing very well and everything like that. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Microsoft navigates this, though, okay? And how they respond for it from a PR perspective, which I'm not holding my breath given their history and all. So overall, the price hike isn't that great. I understand not everybody is going to be pleased with it, though. I understand there will be those who will end their Game Pass Ultimate subscription. That I wouldn't be shocked, though. But just how big of a boycott we could see out of this one, whether it becomes huge or not, that remains to be seen, however, though. Okay, this concludes this My 2 Cent video for this week. And again, these are my opinion. What are yours? What are your thoughts about this report of, this Saudi firm and also this firm by Jared Kushner buying EA and going private and all? Do you think this is the right move for EA in any way? Or do you think it raises some concerns like what we saw with, how Tencent has invested in other companies, though, whether it's Ubisoft or Platinum Games and all? What are your thoughts about the Xbox Rog Ally selling out, though? Do you think this is a sign to indicate that the Xbox Rog Ally will do well? Or do you think you don't see it doing very well at all, despite Microsoft claiming it sold out, apparently? And what are your thoughts about this Game Pass price hike, though? Do you think it is a huge deal that's going up to like $29.99, $30 here in the US? Do you think it's not a big deal at all? Do you think there is justification for people who cancel their Game Pass Ultimate subscription or engage in a boycott and all? Or do you think the boycott will fizzle out or anything? Do you agree with what I said in this video? Do you disagree? Do you have a difference of opinion? As always, sound off in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. And if you do like this video, I hope you hit the like button. I will appreciate it. And I hope you do subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you do, make sure you hit the bell icon for notifications of any new videos I put up. Also, feel free to share this video if you want to, and feel free to donate to my channel if you like. You can do it through PayPal Me or Patreon or Steam Labs. Links will be in the description of this video, assuming you watch this either on YouTube or Patreon. And I will see you again next time when I do another video. Hopefully that'll be soon. Until then, from Southern California, I wish you all a good day then. Bye.